If you had been with me on November 5th, 2011, as I walked across the tarmac at BWI Airport to board the Ravens charter flight for a trip to Pittsburgh and a Sunday night game the following day, you would have noticed that crisp fall air on your face. And perhaps you would have been a touch breathless as we climbed the back stairs leading to the entrance to the plane on the backside of the gigantic 767. As the play-by-play voice of the Baltimore Ravens, I know everybody on the plane and I know most of the flight attendants, and it struck me that day odd that the flight attendant, who I would normally say hello to, made eye contact with me briefly near the top of the steps, but then broke the eye contact and disappeared into the galley. Odd, I thought. But if you had been with me as I walked down the aisle to my seat, 37C, peeled off my black bomber's jacket, put it in the overhead bin and clicked it shut, you would have noticed what I noticed. The entire plane staring at me. Not in a casual, hey Jerry, how are you kind of way, but in a way that made me stop and wonder for a second, are my pants on fire? Just then my producer sitting next to me handed me his phone and whispered, Houston, we have a problem. I looked at the phone and I saw the story. You see, that was the day that the former Penn State defensive coordinator was arrested and charged on multiple counts of child molestation and instantly became the most hated criminal in America. His name was Gerry Sandusky. Now, having worked in the media my adult life, I knew this was going to be a problem that wasn't going away anytime soon. It took weeks, months, years to navigate the chaos that created in our life. And the difference was just one letter. You see, eventually I figured out a way to control the narrative instead of letting the narrative control me. And I did it by paying attention to the simple fact that there's a big difference between the 7th letter of the alphabet, G, and the 10th letter of the alphabet, J. You see, if your name is Gerry Sandusky and you're Jerry with a J, you're doing 50 to life. But if you're Jerry with a G, you're coming to life in your 50s. It's good to be Jerry with a G. No relation. I'll bet you feel better about me now, don't you? One letter can make a big difference. As that story settled into our lives, you can imagine the disruption it created for my family, the pain, the confusion. I gathered them together shortly after this episode and confirmed for them something that I felt very deeply about. We need to stop lashing out. We can't control other people. And we need to take the perspective that there are many victims in this story. And we are not among them. We are inconvenienced, but we are not victims. There are victims of child molestation, and that is a horrible crime. Confusion of identity is an irritation. And that changed everything for us as we moved forward, because my wife and children learned as well that you can control the narrative, or the narrative can control you. And the little things can be the big things. It's called a homonym. 2 words or phrases that sound identical but have very different meanings. You belong to an organization called Virtus. I love that word, Latin origin. It's very similar to, but not identical to, virtue. And the difference between Virtus and virtue is virtue weighs more heavily on the side of righteousness. Virtus weighs more heavily on the side of courage. Many who are courageous are also virtuous. But many who are righteous are not necessarily courageous. I would much rather be with someone who has tremendous courage in the face of a storm than someone who goes through his or her life convinced they are always right. The significance of that difference is that you are called to be courageous, sometimes when you don't know the answers, sometimes when you don't know the way, but with the belief that that courage will help not only you, but others as well. I believe the great symbol for courage is the lighthouse. When I was a much younger man and living in South Florida, I started my television career at WSVN. I was in my early 20s, and I wanted nothing more than to be famous. I can be honest about that now. It is a shallow motivator. I wanted the spotlight. Life has taught me how empty that really is. And life has taught me how fulfilling the light of the lighthouse really is. You see, the spotlight is about drawing the attention to yourself. And even if you succeed on that, you will find it's an empty outcome. It's an empty motivation. Whereas with the lighthouse, think about the primary role of the lighthouse keeper. His or her job is to keep the light within as bright as possible. And isn't that what we're all called to do? Not draw the exterior light to ourselves, but to cultivate the light within. Because if we can have the courage to do that, then that light is available for others when they most need it. And that's the true value of the lighthouse. On a beautiful afternoon when it's sunny and warm and there's a light breeze blowing, you might drive by a lighthouse or two and never even notice them. The lighthouse has its great value when it's dark or when it's stormy. And its greatest value is to the person or the people who are lost. Because in the darkness, in the storm, that light is the beacon that shows them the way to safety and shows them the way home. And isn't that the work you do at Virtus? Shining a light so that others who may be lost have a way home. Being a light in the darkness that is child molestation, human trafficking, and exploitation of the vulnerable. But that light is only available for others if the lighthouse keeper tends to the light within. And even in that, sometimes the little things are the big things. The little things like taking the 3 to 5 minutes each month to read the bulletin that comes your way with the latest information, the latest insights, the latest philosophy, the latest tools to help you do the work that Virtus is called to do. It's not glamorous work. It's not spotlight work. But it's work that can cultivate the light within so that that light is available for others. The day will come when someone needs your light. Not when you need the spotlight. When someone needs the light you have cultivated within. You may never meet that person. You may never shake their hand. But you will change the direction of their life because you took the time to focus on the small things that make a difference inside in your life. The small things like carving out 3 to 5 minutes a month to read the bulletin, to be part of the community, to buy in, to be all in. I know you're a busy person. We all are. But just like J and G are different, 3 to 5 minutes carved out from a busy schedule can make a huge difference in someone else's life. And by the way, I don't know why I spell my name with a G all these years later. You see, my mom was in charge of naming the kids in our family, and she has long since passed. And I've often wondered, did she know I would need that one small difference in my life? Because she clearly had a naming trend going in a different direction. I'm the last of 5 kids, the youngest of 4 boys. My father's name was John. My brothers are Jack, Jim, and Joe. And I'm Gerry with a G. Love you, Mom. I encourage you to be a lighthouse. Tend to the light within. Pay attention to the small things and shine as brightly as you can for those who need you, for the vulnerable, for the weak, for those who are being taken advantage of, for those who need you, even though you may not meet them. And if you do that, I can promise you, you will feel the joy of the lighthouse, which is far greater, far more enriching, far more meaningful than the shallow light of the spotlight. I want to thank you for taking the time to allow me to share this message with you today, and I would ask one favor of you in return. In the event you share with someone that you saw a video today by a man named Gerry Sandusky, please reinforce that it was Gerry with a G.